Thank you, everybody, for being tuned in. Thank you so much. Thank you, family and friends. Thank you, SS and K, for being tuned in tonight. Tonight, we are having a very important discussion. The name of the discussion tonight is the challenges of dating people with kids. And so we definitely want to discuss this topic with a lot of honesty. And so tonight, I just want to let you know that we want you to get a better understanding of what men are thinking, men and women who are thinking, who have kids, and those who don't have kids. And we'll be coming from a lot of different perspectives. We'll be tackling this topic from a spiritual perspective, also from a practical perspective. And so we definitely want to make sure tonight that this issue is discussed thoroughly and that those who are in our particular situations will, in some aspect, be encouraged or just get a dose of reality. And so tonight, I got some wonderful men and women of God on the panel tonight. I want to give my panelists an opportunity to go ahead and introduce themselves. And we're going to start from the bottom to the top. Ladies first. Go ahead, Fran, and introduce yourself. You're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here. My name is Francesca Sampson. It's my first time on this panel. I'm excited to be here. I am a social worker and a professor. I'm also the founder of Taking Care of Our Mental Health Group. I'm also a publisher. I recently published a book, 52 Weeks of Mental Wellness. And I usually dabble in a whole lot of different things. One of my primary focus is mental wellness for the believers. So that's just a little synopsis about me.
Nice. Great to have you. Great to have you on the panel tonight.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Once again, just want to thank you, Tamel, for having me on the panel. It was always a pleasure to join you, brothers, and to join you, sister, to discuss some of these topics. My name is AB Bracewell. By profession, I'm a therapist, man of God, father, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Yes, sir. Definitely glad to have you as always, sir.
All right, my name is Jared Barkerton, and I am a social media influencer. Basically, what I do is I actually assist other social media personality types with conversations that we have today. It spans from issues between men, women, how to raise families, finances, that type of thing. So those are the things that we discuss on a daily basis from different platforms, from Instagram to YouTube to Facebook. So we're all over the place. So we get an opportunity to get different perspectives from different places. And also I'm a moderator for SSNK as well, along with other platforms as well.
Yes, sir. Definitely glad to have you. That's JB, the enforcer. And so, yeah, he's definitely a moderator with SSNK. But I am Tamel Brown. I'm Elder Tamel Brown of Fruit Bear Ministries. I'm also part of the Church of God in Christ. My pastor is Bishop Paul L. Fortin. Also, I am the founder of Single Saved But No Kids. That's what SSNK stands for, Single Saved But No Kids. I'm also a singer-songwriter, music streaming on Spotify and other streaming sites. And I also am a writer for Tamel Brown LLC under ASCAP. And so definitely glad to have you guys tonight. And so in order for men and women who have kids to get a better understanding of how those who do not have kids feel while dating, tonight feelings may be hurt. Feelings may be hurt, but I think sometimes it's going to take some hurt feelings for people to get a better understand that there are different perspectives, and the way you might be thinking things should go, they may not go that way. And so we have to, as Christians, weigh the pros and cons of dating people outside of, our normal circumstances. So if we decide to court each other, we have a good idea of what we're getting into. And so the purpose of this discussion, and most in my discussions, is not to offend anyone, but to give honest thoughts and experiences and perspectives. And so I want to encourage us as Christians, as people of God, to make sure that we get into God-led, compatible relationships that lead to long-lasting marriages. And so I think I've said enough. And so let's go ahead and get into the discussion. This discussion tonight is the challenges of dating people with kids. And let me say this before we get started. Elena Walker will be joining us in just a few minutes. She's running a little bit late, but she'll be on joining us as well. And once she comes on, we allow her to introduce herself as well. And so I want to ask the single parents, AB and Fran, I want to ask you guys, what has been the hardest part about dating, and having kids? Either one of you guys can go first to jump in there.
Okay, I'll just start. And also, I want us to examine this conversation from both angles because they can be challenges and also they may not be challenges because, there are people who have kids and are dating without any type of challenges. So, I just want to take it from both lens, both perspective. One of my major challenges is time management. And the time management is not so because of the kids, but it's because I'm just doing so much. So I would say that is my challenge when it comes to dating someone. I think it definitely depends on the age of the child. My youngest is 12 years old, so I don't really have to micromanage him. He can do things for himself. But if you have someone with a younger child, let's say 3 or 4, the challenges is definitely going to vary. But for the most part, I think it depends on the support, because if you're a single parent and you have support, let's say you have an aunt, you have a grandma that can watch the child, support plays a huge influence in single parents and being able to date. So definitely support, having someone to help you out in whatever area you need.
Yeah, for me, there's a lot of, I guess, changes, or I can say you can call them challenges. When I didn't have a child and was dating, I was free to, okay, date how I wanted, when I wanted, where I wanted. But when I became a father, I took the vetting process a lot more seriously, because I had to really assess the person I was dating, because I was a father now. I had a son, and I had to be very careful with the people that I let into my lives and the people that I let into my son's life. So that poses challenges of its own when you have to become more intentional about how you move in this dating pool. So when you become more intentional, when you vet a little bit more stricter, it lowers your dating pool because some people get eliminated off the list. So that was somewhat of a challenge, because before I had a child, I would be open to meet different people, but once I became a father, I had to become more intentional and more focused on the fact that I had a son, and I had to be careful with those that was in my environment, of course. And yet, it's kind of like Fran said, time does become a factor. I'm a very dedicated and involved father, so I spend a lot of time with my son. I dedicate a lot of my energy, a lot of my resources to making sure that he grows up to be a responsible man. So that takes away some time from the dating process. It takes away some time from resources that I would probably previously spend on dating or getting to meet someone. I'll put it towards my child now. So there was definitely some changes and some challenges becoming a parent and being on the dating scene. But I'll leave it at that.
Definitely makes sense to me. And so, as you can see, there are different challenges, and as Fran was saying, there may not be challenges depending on your support system and things of that nature. And so, we heard the perspective somewhat, and we're going to get deeper into the conversation from Fran and AB, which was some good stuff, some things to think about, especially if you're considering dating someone with kids. And so I want to go to JB. I definitely want to ask you this question, and I want you to be as honest and as candid as you usually are. And so, would you date a woman with kids, or would you not date a woman with kids? And tell me why you feel the way you do concerning this particular topic.
Thank you. Here's a situation. Sometimes we have to look at reality a little bit, and we have to make sure that we focus on the purpose of why we're particularly dating. As you know, most of our population, usually about 80% of the people have kids. Usually anytime they get over 30, 40 years old, just about everybody got kids. And if you are looking for somebody today who doesn't have kids, it does present a daunting task. You know what I mean? Not only are you going to be competing against other men, you can also be competing against other people who want to vie for that person's attention. Now, here's the thing. You'll also have other people vying for your attention. I'll give you an example. Like, I'm a man with no kids. You see what I'm saying? Generally, your first option would be to date somebody who does not have kids. That's the optimum. From experience, I'm going to tell you, most men don't want to date someone who has somebody else in their life who has influence over their house. You see what I'm saying? Some say so over that particular person's house, and that presents some particular challenges or whatever. But there are other nuances that go into a particular relationship. You just can't rubber stamp and say, hey, I'm not going to date anybody with kids, because you never know who you might meet. But one of the things that I see is that the bonding time is very limited between the two romantic interests, between the father and the mother, or the parent and the non-parent person that's in that particular relationship, because so much time has to be spent with that child, which is understandable. You're supposed to spend a certain amount of time with the child, but at the same time, you have to build a bond if you're going to build something that's going to last. That's the reason why I went back to, what's your purpose for this particular relationship? Are you guys just dating because you're lonely? Or are you guys dating to build something? You know what I mean? And also, if that guy doesn't have any kids, you got to ask the lady, are you willing to have some children of his own? He may have to forego, giving up kids of his own to take on, somebody else's, kids or whatever, and raise them, which most people usually don't have a problem with. But the only time they usually have a problem with that if the child is not disciplined. And that gets into a whole nother ball game. If you're going to be taking care of somebody and somebody else's child, then discipline has to be one of those things that has to be discussed. How are you planning on raising the child? That type of thing. Because other men don't want other men telling them what to do with their kid. They don't want you to discipline. They say, hey, I'm the father. You should let me handle that. You see what I'm saying? But at the same time, you got somebody else in the house that's providing, shelter, food, clothing, whatever it is may be, you know what I mean? That type of thing. And that may also rub the other person's it's involved the wrong way. So it is definitely one of those situations where you have to handle it as an adult, because, you're dealing with somebody else's kid, and people want to raise their kid a certain way. So that's the main reason why I say in those particular situations, you have to be very, very careful when you're dating somebody with children.
Absolutely. And so I think you made some great points. And before AB and Fran responds, and you can't, did you want to say something, Fran?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off what both Gerard and AB said. I mean, AB said about the vetting process, and that is so important. That is so essential, because a lot of times, we're so quick to get involved. We feel all these butterflies, all these emotions. You just want to roll with it, but you have to take time to do the vetting process. My vetting process does not involve my kids getting to know that man at least until 6 months. Because 6 months, that's enough time for you to know, okay, am I going to proceed with this, or, this is not going anyway. So I think we really do need to take more time and just vet that person, so at least they know what is it they're getting into, prepare them during that 3 to 6 months period.
I agree with that. I mean, as a single mother, I can definitely understand you not, wanting the individual you're dating to really meet your kids into that amount of time until you're sure and know that this particular individual is going to, be someone that is going to be in your life or you feel at the time. So that's definitely understandable. AB, did you want to jump in there or? You're on mute, AB.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I believe the question you asked JB was what? Because I did have something to say, but I want to make sure I address correctly.
Sure, sure. I was asking JB, uh, would he date a woman with kids or would he not? What was his reasons why he
Oh
would or
yeah,
would not?
okay. Yeah. When you asked him that question, I actually kind of thought of the opposite end of the spectrum, as far as women that dated me before I had a child, um, versus the women that date me now, and what was the better version of me? Was it when I was childless, or now that I'm a father? And I would definitely say the better version of me is now that I'm a dad. Before I had a son, I probably wouldn't have been the best guy to date, because I was a little bit more reckless. But once I became a father, I learned true responsibility. I learned true commitment. I really learned how to sacrifice. I really understood what that like unconditional love is, from having a child. So I I became a better man when I became a father. I always say that my child made me into a man. So when you ask that question to JB, I really just kind of reversed it and like, you know, what was I a good guy to date when I wasn't a father? Not to say I was a terrible man, but I definitely became a lot better when I became a father.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that you shared that perspective because that is something that you probably wouldn't think about. I mean, because I don't have any kids, that's something that I probably would something that probably wouldn't be on my mind. But having your situation changed and being a father, I think your perspective is definitely needed as like a self-evaluation type of thing, for you to just grow as a person. And so I want to get a little bit controversial right now. And so I want AB and Fran, if I'm saying something wrong, I want you to clear some things up. AB, JB, I want you as well to kind of jump in here. And so there's a couple of things why, I've heard men say they don't want to date women with kids. I'm only coming from a perspective, because I date, women. So I'm coming from a perspective of the man's perspective of dating women. But I realize and even in personal experience in my relationships is that you always, in most cases, you're going to have to be second to the needs of that child. And so in most cases, the child is going to be that woman's top priority. And so and that's understandable because they got to make sure that the child is well, especially if it's a newborn child and a young toddler. So your alone time, and this is the thing that used to kind of uh, aggravate me a little bit, is that your alone time with that particular individual is going to be limited because the child is going to always be around, so you won't get that woman's full attention. And so if you're a man and that likes the full attention or just wants that relationship, that one-on-one building with that woman, that may not happen as often if she has a child. But I know Fran was saying you don't even get to meet hers until 6 months in. So so that's what's up. I feel. And so it's about the relationship building, but you're gonna have to also, as a man, you're gonna have to have a good relationship with the child. Hopefully, you understand what I'm saying. And so that also doesn't always happen. All right, so you have to know, and Fran, and you can tell me now, you have to know that men, if you get with a woman who has a child or children, they come as a package deal. Are you ready for that package deal? Am I right or am I wrong, Fran?
A little of both. Little of both. They definitely have to be balanced because I can't want a man in my life and I'm always putting my child's needs first. So once that vetting process is over and you decide that this is the person that's, I'm going to be with, and the introduction and all of that has happened, you have to set some boundaries with your children. And it depends on the age. Of course, if a child is 5 and under, it's kind of hard to set certain boundaries. But over time, children learn. Children learn what we model to them. If the child is 11 or 12 years old, you can keep telling, well, mom or dad is dating this person, and we're going to spend some alone time. And, when we're spending alone time, it doesn't mean, and this is the thing too, we have to have these conversations with our children. Let them know, not because I'm spending time with him means I'm taking away my love for you. I still love you. But, he's in my life now and I have to spend time with him. So I don't believe in, and this is just my take, I don't believe in the children are being put first and the guy is being put second, or the guy vice versa. I just believe it depends on boundaries. Establishing boundaries once you decide that relationship is going to take a next step, and having that ongoing conversation with your child and also with your potential spouse or mate.
Makes sense to me. And I want to hit at some other points here, and then I'll definitely let AB and JB respond. But of course, also, and so there's some things like sometimes women have kids who are hard-headed kids and very stubborn children, children that talk back and things of that nature, right? And so as a man, and see that this has been the issue as far as with the choosing of a woman with kids. And I know a lot of women in the body of Christ, Christian women, I'll say all women have an issue, because I've heard, as I read different posts, as I've talked to different ladies who do have kids, they feel like men who are single and don't have any kids, they're passing them over just because of the fact that they have kids. But I don't think that they're factoring in all of the things that may come along with being involved with somebody else's child. So that's something that a man, if a woman doesn't have any kids, that's something that you're not worried about. That's something that you're not going to have to deal with, unless eventually down the road you get married and have kids with that particular woman. And so you wouldn't have to worry about being a priority, or, there wouldn't be any type of confrontational time, because you're concentrating on each other's needs instead of the child's needs first. And so before I go further, go ahead, anybody who wants to jump in around those particular points.
I would definitely say, if you're a man that's dating a woman with a child, you definitely have to know who you are as a person before you take that on. You have to know what you can handle and what you can't handle. You have to know that, or be ready to possibly step into that father figure role, if it would, if the relationship would develop to that level. So if you don't know who you are as a man and you're not ready for that level of responsibility, I would say don't date a woman with child, because there's definitely going to be limits. If you're a man that's selfish or self-centered and want all the attention or need all attention, definitely don't date a woman that has children, because the child will require her attention, and there's going to be other things in her life that's going to require a lot of attention also. So you have to know how much attention is required for you to be happy in a relationship before you jump into that situation.
And you know what? I think a lot of people don't realize it's different when men who have kids date out. I'm going to tell you why. The difference is that the men aren't requiring the women to support him raise that child if he has a child. But if a man is dating a woman that has a child, she may say, yes, I don't need you to help support this child. But in the end, you're going to wind up doing it. You know what I'm saying? If it doesn't work out, then he's gonna regret it. So it happens from time to time. So that's the difference, because most men are not gonna ask women to support them raising their kids. That's just how it is.
I agree with that. I agree with the points that everyone made. I agree with AB, Fran, and you, JB. I think you guys are making some good points, some things to think about. And so I want women who have kids just to be more understanding of what is going on in the thought process of a man when he decides to get into a relationship with you, or the reasons why he may be hesitant is because of some of those things. And so this is something very important that I'd like to share. And this comes from my pastor, Bishop Paul L. Fortson. And so I'm going to get a little spiritual. But per Bishop Paul Fortson, the correct structure and order of importance for the family is: number one, God first; two, spouse, husband and wife; three, the child and children; four, work; and then five, church. And I totally agree with the correct structure and order of importance, because as you see in his order of importance and that he teaches, is that children are not supposed to be priority over the spouse. And so I think if we're taking it from a spiritual perspective, because we're Christians, you have to take a look at that. Now, it's hard when there are children already there, because your life is already out of the order and structure that it should be, according to what God desires, right? And so this lines up, right, with the word of God, right, in Genesis 1:21 through 24, right? And so, and the Lord, God had caused a sleep to come on Adam, and Adam said, now, bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, she shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And so let me make this point, right? It is because people who have kids without being married out of wedlock, their life is not in the order and structure that God planned for them, and that God feels is best for them. So there are going to be struggles from the beginning, because a lot of things have to be taken into consideration. Now, let's think about some practical things, right? And so let's say this, okay, let's take it from the spiritual to the practical, because I know everybody who's watching is not Christian, all right? So if you're going to have sex, okay, and you're not sure if you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, wear a condom and use birth control. I mean, that's just practical, okay? Let's be real and honest, because, when you have a conversation with me, I'm going to be candid. It's going to be controversial at times. And so all Christians are not abstinent, right? So, and if you have kids and are not married, the evidence of you having that sexual act, is front stage and center. So what I'm trying to say in totality is that you have already started off, and I know, like I said, I'm not trying to offend anybody or hurt anybody's feelings, or anybody who has kids or anything of that nature, but your life has already started out of order. And so the decisions that you made when you decided to have sex, the result of that was a child. And so you can't be angry and upset when brothers are passing you over for women who don't have any kids, because a lot of brothers want to start their families afresh from scratch. And that's not every man's desire. But I want you to look at how important it is for you to be aligned in, God's divine plan. And I could go on and on, but I will not. And so go ahead and jump in there. I know some thoughts are flowing through your head, and go ahead and jump in there. I see Fran's face. Come on and tell me what's on.
Or Tamel, you could have started it the right way and was married, and then the marriage didn't go the way you planned, as in my case, and you end up single with the children. But I found that women are a lot more receptive to take on a man with children and will take that children as if, they're her own, as opposed to a man. I find a lot of times men, they have, of course, they have needs, they have desires, they have all of these lists that they want to check. Whereas a woman would just come on and, these are my babies, these are mine, and she would just take them on in. But for men, it's a little bit more difficult for, them to be accepting of children. And why is that? Why is it the women are more receptive and the men have more challenges in accepting the children?
Well, go ahead and ask. Do you want to answer that, JB?
I'll be glad to answer that one. Here's the deal. Generally, back in the day, it used to be honorable to marry somebody who has kids. You know what I mean? To be a stepdaddy. You know what I mean? You can look at people like Shaq, whose stepfather was an instrumental role in his life into becoming the man that he was, and he became successful. And then you have instances where you have other people who became stepfathers who were basically abused. You know what I mean? They got with the wrong particular woman. And, 9 times out of 10, there was always some type of, underlying, how should I say this? Abuse, mental abuse. You know what I mean? Sometimes in certain cases, it's physical. Sometimes men can be put in situations where they could be blamed for stuff that they didn't do. Or the police called on them for something that they didn't do. You know what I mean? So when a man takes on a woman with children, he's technically opening himself up to all type of liability. And not to mention that there's other things that people don't factor in. Say, for instance, who does the child go to in the case of a medical emergency? That type of thing. You know what I mean? All of those things need to be discussed ahead of time. So that way everybody knows what's going to happen. Hey, if something happens to you, should I call her, her dad or whatever, or his dad or whatever, and their family? Do you have their telephone numbers? Have those conversations. Insurance, life insurance, all the other stuff, the adult stuff that we're supposed to talk about. Those are the things we really don't discuss when it comes to stuff like that. And then sometimes you get down to situations where people want people to adopt their kids. Well, if you got a father, that's going to be a problem because he's going to have a say so about that. So it gets kind of sticky when you're dealing with somebody who has kids versus somebody who doesn't, because it comes off a whole lot cleaner as far as a man is concerned, because he's still going to be responsible for being the head of that household and running that house a certain way. And if he's not being honored, then that's going to make it difficult for him to complete that task.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I can definitely understand your perspective, and everything that you said to me reigns true in my opinion. Did you want to jump in there, AB, before I start getting into some more points?
Yeah, I had a thought on what you were saying about the order. I think it's important for us to look at the order that you gave, and it was specifically talking about spouse, husband and wife. But when we're talking about dating, that order doesn't really come into play. And I would hope if a dating situation would elevate to a marital situation, that order is then implemented, where the woman and the man communicate with each other, and they understand that the spouse comes, and then the children, and then whatever the order. Of course, God first. But when it comes to dating, I don't know how much that order applies. And also, when we speak about order, I can just speak about myself personally, being that I'm a dad. My life was way more out of order before I became a father. So it may not be in the order as far as God, marriage, children, but there was a whole lot of other things that derailed my life when I was childless. So the things, the way that I'm on point now, I was not like that when I didn't have a kid. So I just wanted to put that point out there. So there's been a lot of ladies that I have dated that had children or didn't have children, and a lot of the ones that didn't have children, their life was not particularly in order as well. Maybe they didn't have children, but there was a whole lot of other things that they brought to the table that that didn't lead to a healthy relationship.
Absolutely. I think you make a great point. And so that is true. In the dating process, that order is a little bit different. Definitely, the order is definitely concerning when you decide to marry someone. And so you have to even think about that even before marriage, that, you know, you're establishing those things now so that when you do get married, there's an understanding there. So I want to talk about this. And so, like I said, I am hitting every negative thing that might be out there. Okay. And so you might be mad at Elder Tamel Brown tonight, but hey, this is what's needed, because we need to, you know, cover this conversation. And so people can really get an understanding. Okay. So let's talk about spontaneity. All right. And so, and I'll, you know, speak from experience and things of that nature. But you, for example, like, you won't be able to be spontaneous. You know, sometimes for me, I'm spontaneous sometimes. So out of the blue, I might be like, you know, hey baby, you know, let's take a vacation this weekend. You know, get your bags packed, be ready to go. But you can't be spontaneous like that with a woman who has kids. Not very often, because she has to make sure that that baby, if they're young children, has a babysitter, that if they're of a certain age, teenage age, that she can leave them alone, things of that nature. So there's a lot of spontaneity that's taken out of there. And so she would have to make preparations for a babysitter, somebody to watch the kids. And so that would be unappealing to me, because that's the kind of person I am now. Every man's not like that. You know, I might want to do some things. And so I may want to go out dancing and have a romantic evening planned for us. But, you know, right today, right, you know, and it's a surprise, and I can't do it because the kids are, you got to make sure those kids are taken care of. Now, I'm just saying, if I'm dating a woman who does not have any kids, usually that wouldn't be an issue. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I'm saying some things can be seen as unappealing to men who don't have any kids. And so she's not going to be able to drop what she's doing. And so she's not going to be able to be spontaneous. And I'm telling you, look at, ladies and gentlemen, as you're watching, listen to me. I am coming from different perspectives, all right? I'm coming from the spiritual Christian man, and I'm coming from a counter perspective as well, because everybody ain't saved, but this is a Christian platform. So, and this is something, listen, as a man in the past, I have, you know, been sexual before. I'm pretty sure some other people have been, and sex is a wonderful thing. So we're not going to really get into that. But like from a spontaneity perspective, right, I may be an individual that may be horny, right? Listen, we're going to tackle it. And I may want to throw you down on the couch in the living room and make love to you. I might want to take you into the kitchen and make love to you. If a child is there, it's not going to happen. I like that kind of stuff, or I've liked that kind of stuff in the past, right? To be able to have those type of experiences. I don't always want to have to go into the bedroom and close the door, and the child is, you know, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lack of spontaneity. Okay, right. So we are saved, right? I'm not promoting any, you know, sex before marriage or anything like that. I'm just saying, we're coming from a spiritual perspective and a natural perspective, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all men and women, and sex is a wonderful thing. Sex is beautiful. God made it. And so I'm just saying that the spontaneity, oh, wow. Yeah, it's not there. It won't happen. And I like that. And I think some other brothers might like that. So if a woman doesn't have any kids, we can do those things, right? But go ahead, anybody can jump in there, and I'm going to get to the next question. But if you have something to say after that, go ahead.
I wanted to add something to that too, to Mel, about the spontaneity part. Sometimes the kids have events that they have to go to. They may have football practice, they may have soccer, you know what I mean, that type of thing, or some type of other extracurricular activity that has to be factored in the too. So you don't really want to stunt that child's development, because all that other stuff makes that child a better person. That's coming from somebody who played football, who was in the band, who had all this other stuff. It made me a better person. So those are the things that you want to make sure that that child gets everything that they need. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And sometimes when you date somebody with kids, those are some of the things that you may run across.
Absolutely. Absolutely agreed. Go ahead, anybody who wants to jump in there, and then I'll go ahead and introduce Elena. Let her
Yeah.
introduce herself.
I'll just add real quick. Kids are not the only thing that prevents you from being spontaneous, and also it goes back to your support system. I can say, hey, my sister, can you watch such and such for a day or two? It goes back to your support. And I think when you have children in general, you're supposed to have a support system in place, even when you're married. Because let's say, okay, you don't have children now, but when you get married and you have children, that spontaneity that you're speaking of, you're gonna have to tone it down sometimes. So it's not always about the kids being around. There's other things that occurs in life that prevents us, from being spontaneous at times. And even if we're married and we want to get away on a quick vacation, you can call on your support to step in and help you out. But it's just talking things through with the person that you're dating to make sure they know what's going on.
Yeah.
Very good point. Make a good point, and that's beautiful. I think what you're saying is wonderful. But in the beginning, right, as I'm stating, I ain't got to worry about that if you ain't got no kids. It's on.
When I agree, spontaneity is important. It has its time when it does add to a relationship. But when I'm really vetting a person or a woman that I want to be with, I have to see where does spontaneity rank on my stages of importance when it comes to a woman. Is spontaneity at the top, or am I looking for a woman that's kind, a woman that's respectful, a Christian woman, somebody that's fun to be around, somebody that's understanding and forgiving, who's a good communicator, and a good woman that may not be spontaneous enough to just get down right in the living room, but when we get to the bedroom, she satisfies me. So I have to rank where does spontaneity rank on my needs of importance. So it's some give and take in all relationships, and spontaneity might be one of the things that you have to give up at times.
I think you make a really good point too, AB, concerning that. And so it is in the quality of the person and the individual is what you're concerned with. But like you said, you would have to weigh those things. And so, do you want a woman who you're going to connect with, be compatible with in other areas, and especially, even if she's not spontaneous? So make some good points. Understandable there. Go ahead, Elena. Glad to have you on. Glad that you was able to join. And so go ahead and introduce yourself really quick, and then we continue on into the discussion.
Okay. First, I apologize for being late to everyone. It was on me. I had forgot that this was 6 p.m. because when I was thinking in my mind 7 p.m., but I actually am in Central Time. And I've been all over different places, and so I kind of got myself mixed up. And so anyway, I'm here because I try to be about my word, and so I do still want to make it. After I just made it back to Texas about 3 hours ago. So anyway, my name is Elena Walker. I guess I currently reside in Texas, even though I'm half the time traveling. And I think that's about it. I do want to say something on being spontaneous, since we were just talking about that.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. So for me, even though I personally don't want to have kids at this point in my life, I don't, and I think everybody that mostly knows me knows that. And I'm very upfront with men as far as dating them, and I let them know. I'm honest and upfront about it. So some people, that's the deal breaker. For me, it's the deal breaker if they still want to have kids and I don't. So for me, I can be spontaneous pretty often, regardless if I want to have kids or not. I can still be spontaneous, but I am not spontaneous as much. I'm a planner. I'm a big planner. And actually, when I'm traveling, I'm more spontaneous than when I'm like just locally. And I say that because I don't like to plan out every moment of my trip. I like to kind of just wing it per se, like plan, like get there, you know. And if it's something I really, really want to do that might be like something that you have to stand in the line 2 hours or 3 hours for if you don't plan it ahead of time, then I'll plan that out. But everything else, mostly, I'm spontaneous. I just wing it. I sleep late. I get up when I want to get up and I do things. And so I really don't like to be spontaneous because I have a life besides dating. I'm just being real. I mean, I have a lot of responsibility, and so being spontaneous doesn't work for me all the time. And I make that's something that when you're vetting or talking to someone, that should come up, what they like and what you don't like. And so I'm more of a let's talk about it, let's get a plan. But I think also I'm that way because I'm not a ride or die. Y'all know the term, let's be real. I'm not ride or die. I'm not ride or die. So I need to know where we're going. I'm not just, pick me up. I mean, if you say it's a surprise, then maybe sometimes, but I don't do too well with like for my safety. I'm not a ride or die. And I don't think I'm not. And so I need to know where I'm going. You can still be spontaneous with me, but I like a plan when I'm dating per se. Because sometimes, I'm just saying from my experience, sometimes men that I've dated, they don't think through things. Like, let's say we wanted to go to dinner on a Friday at 8 p.m. and it's a popular place. You can't be too spontaneous in DFW, Dallas Fort Worth, at some of these popular places, and unless you're trying to wait 2 hours. And I mean, I try to be patient, but I don't want to wait 2 hours. I'm just saying. So it's a thin line for me with the spontaneous. It kind of depends on what I'm doing, where I'm going. Now, if we're just hanging at the park and Saturday afternoon, that's fine. But if we're trying to like go check out something that's supposed to be popular, we need a plan. We just can't show up, So it just kind of depends for me. That's all.
Nice. Absolutely. So understandable. And so you're getting different perspectives from everyone. I think what everyone is saying makes sense and what's applicable to their lives and the kind of relationships that they want to have. And so I want to go to this question here. And so now we're going to get down into the dirty kind of the nitty gritty of things here. And this is concerning this. And I want the AB and Fran to answer these questions because this is a delicate one here. And this question for you guys is, as a parent, will you allow your partner to discipline your children? Does your partner have to get your permission before disciplining your children? And what kinds of discipline is acceptable to you as a parent?
That's a mouthful. In the beginning, of course, no, because the society that we live in, there's a thin line between discipline and abuse. So you definitely have to learn that person's history, what their family dynamics look like. What was discipline for them while they grow up? What does that look like? Once it gets into marriage, then of course there need to be a dialogue, as to what are the appropriate disciplines. That should be a conversation to have even before you even going into marriage. Is it taking away stuff? Is it spanking? What is it? For me, I always do taking away. I don't believe in spanking. I don't believe in hitting my kids. So I always take away stuff from them, stuff that they're really going to feel like the game, the Xbox. And they don't want me to take stuff away because when I take it away, I forget where I put it. So they don't want me to take stuff away. But definitely, you have to have a conversation once you're heading towards marriage. But in the beginning, in the dating process, for me, it's no.
Understandable. Yes. Makes sense to me. Go ahead, AB.
Yeah, I was trying to get off mute. I think that's why it's so important that we have that vetting process, so we know what type of person that we're actually dealing with. Um, when it comes to discipline, kind of like Fran was saying, there's all different types of forms of discipline. So some forms of discipline are acceptable to me, and some are not. Um, for me personally, I don't practice like physical discipline. There's no need to with my child because just talking to him is enough for the most part. So I wouldn't allow someone else to do something that I don't do, and especially something that he doesn't need. More importantly, so kind of like what Fran said, like that positive and reinforcement of behaviors or negative reinforcement of behaviors, punishment as far as putting someone on taking away privileges or telling them to go to their rooms. I have no problem with that level of discipline if it's a discussion, between me and a person, especially if we're married. Now, if we're dating, depending on how serious that relationship is, I would definitely expect that it's ran past me first, before you just start giving out punishments. But then it comes to like it always comes back to the vetting. It's up to me to pick the proper person, and for my life that I know will not abuse my child or any child for that matter. So when it comes to disciplining, it doesn't, it's not a worry or it's not a major concern for me.
Beautiful, beautiful points. This is what, yes, this is what I wanted you guys to really be honest about that. Because AB, let's say, for example, a brother like me, let's say that, I was with your baby mama's, your baby mother, just pure adventure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your son, your son is of a different age. So, but let's talk about young children because some of these kids now, I know like I said, I'm going to say some things that might be offensive to some people. But men and women are funny about you disciplining the kids, and just as Fran and AB said that you need their permission to discipline them a certain way, which is understandable because those kids. But I wonder, right? Because, and I'll use myself as an example. So this is my thing, right? So um, if I'm dating someone and let's say a child is around me and maybe they're doing something wrong, and I tell that child, hey, listen, don't do that. I don't want you to listen. That's going against the rules. You sit down, sit your behind down, and be quiet or whatever the situation is because he's acting out. So a lot of women would take offense to that, because my level of discipline is not the same. So if that's going to be, I mean, that's why you got to have these different conversations. I heard Fran say she doesn't spank or hit her kids. AB said the same thing. So I grew up in the era where I got my behind torn up. My mother used to whoop me and pick up shoes, hit me with shoes and everything, hit me with the broom and everything, because we were big, tall, strong guys, and she had to make sure that she was in charge. And so I believe in spanking kids. Now, not see that's where the dilemma is, because, like you said, some women don't believe in you hitting their kids or spanking their kids. Now, if you're developing a relationship, there's different levels to it, whether you're just dating or in a serious relationship. But those are things that we single men and women think about, because I don't want to have to come to you and ask how should the child be disciplined. I think it's a different story if you're a biological parent. That's not going to be questioned as much about how you're disciplining the kids, not much. So if I say, hey, look, sit down, oh, you're being mean to my son, you're being mean to my daughter, because you don't discipline like that. I don't believe in repeating myself 4 and 5 times like you do. If I say it, I mean it. And if not, I'm getting that spanking, right? That's me, right? So these are things you have to talk about. That's why I like what Fran and AB was very, very, very honest about that. And so that's not appealing to me, right? Because now things are wonderful. Now check it out. Things are wonderful when we go into Disneyland and when I'm taking the kids on vacation and buying them nice things, oh, we're a family. We're a family. Yeah, we have a wonderful time. But when it comes to discipline, it's a difference. Oh, you can't do that to my child. Oh, we was a family. I thought we was a family before. Now, when things are good, things are going well, we're a family. But when it comes to discipline, we ain't a family. All of a sudden, it's your way versus my way. But when things are good, oh, it's all good. See, that's what I can't get with that. I'm not saying all men and women are like that. I'm just saying those are some scenarios that take place, all right? And so, and also, look at the baby daddy. Am I going to have to come out with fisticuffs and we're going to have to get it, because you got some brothers, that like AB. I don't think AB would like me putting his hands on his son. And I might have to, AB running over to the house. I'm gonna have to put it on AB. No, I'm just kidding. AB. I'm just kidding.
Let me add. Can I add something real quickly?
Go ahead, man.
I counsel married couples all the time. They're married. They have no outside kids. Only kids between them. And the topic of disciplining and the discrepancies and the differences of the way one might want to discipline the other comes up all the time. That is a major issue because it usually doesn't have nothing to do with the fact that the person is not the father or the mother of this child or biologically. Usually it's what's that person's history. How did they grow up and what type of discipline did they grow up on and what are they bringing to the marriage, which causes the issue. So you can run into that problem if you're married and you only have a child with that one person, or if it's a child from outside relationship. So I just wanted to put that out there.
AB, quick question about that. How often do you think that people discuss disciplinary actions before they have kids? How often is that discussion had, or is this something that just comes up all of a sudden?
It's hard to say how often, but I know with couples that I work with, it is a topic of discussion, and it is a sore point for a lot of them. And sometimes it doesn't come up until there's a problem in the relationship. So the way the mom or the dad was disciplining all this time wasn't really an issue. But now that I'm mad at you, now I don't like the way you're talking to the child.
So you think it's more about their particular situation and not about the child in that situation, and they're just using the child as a scapegoat to put pressure on the other person?
In that situation, in those situations, yeah. And then there's situations where they just don't like the way they talk to the child. One parent did not grow up getting hit, but the father grew up getting spanking. So she doesn't, in her eyes, it's abuse. And she doesn't like it. So
right.
I've seen it on many different levels.
Right, because one person's discipline is another person's abuse, and who's there to draw that line? And 9 times out of 10, it goes by what the parent of that particular child says, because they're legally responsible for that child. So that could put people in very precarious situations sometimes.
Anybody else want to jump in there concerning the discipline of the kids?
I just want to add to what AB said. The family dynamics play a very central role. A lot of times when we get into relationships, we don't ask the right questions. Some of the questions that we need to know: do they have mental illness in their history? How were you disciplined? What form of discipline is appropriate to you? We don't ask the right questions, and we don't ask the questions until it comes up in counseling. So the background, the way you were raised, the way I was raised, is two different family, two strangers that are coming together. And when you come together, there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of tension. And, when you're in love, a lot of times you're not thinking about those things until we're married and we have children. And then all of these issues starts flooding in. And we decide to deal with all these issues at one time. And it's usually a disaster at that time. But we have to ask the right questions while we're dating. Goes back to the vetting process.
Yeah.
Right. You're right, friend. I've seen situations where adults didn't know that they had ADHD until later on in life, and it causes problems in the marriage. And you don't know that unless you had those conversations. You know, have you been to therapy, that type of thing? Have you been diagnosed with any type of, you know, mental illness or something like that? Most of the times we don't talk about mental illness in our community. It's just one of those things we sweep up under the rug. But 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you that's something that tears us up apart, because we have short attention spans and we're very impatient sometimes. And we don't think about, hey, sometimes we may need a little medication, or we may need counseling, or they may have had something that happened traumatic to them while they were younger. Those things need to be addressed, or they will manifest in the relationship in an unhealthy way.
Absolutely.
I agree with what's been said about asking the right questions, because some things just don't get asked until it comes up. And I also think some of the questions that should be asked are associated with like your like background, as far as when we were talking about how you were raised, how did your parents like discipline you? And things around that nature, or even the grandparents of the kids, like just knowing what their thoughts are on what they want to do or what they like to do. And you find out that by talking to the person, because sometimes, let's say for an example, because I don't plan on having kids, so I'm not trying to talk on that part of it. But I have experience with having a lot of nieces and nephews, and let's say the grandparents don't want the kids to do something that the parents do, or one of the parents want the kids to do something, stuff like that. Like the grandparents may not want the kids to play football. I'm just giving an example, like the son to play football for whatever reason. And the dad does, and the mom, like, she sides with the grandparents, you know? And so those type of things like that should be discussed as well. Because sometimes, and this goes beyond just with having kids, but sometimes a lot of people allow their family to get into their relationship and their marriage and how they're raising their kids, and allow family to dictate what they do with their marriage. Not just kids, but overall, marriage, kids, you know. And so that needs to be discussed, how we're going to handle this, and other people coming over to visit, you know, and if they have kids and stuff like that. All that doesn't get discussed, because sometimes family, you know, plays a major role on how discord happens in relationships.
Another very good point, very good things to consider. And so I think we're moving the conversation forward really well. And I think we're touching on some things that people don't usually think about on a really high level when getting into these relationships. So I know that communication is very important. And so, and I think, you know, as I talk from a product of a few stepfathers. And so that's something that you definitely want to talk to your potential mate about. Discipline. Discipline, I think, is very important. I mean, don't even get into the relationship before you discuss that. I think it's important that you discuss it before even getting into the relationship. And so also, always the stepfathers that's coming into the lives of these children, or the particular stepfathers, stepmothers coming into the lives of children. I'll say potential because it's the dating, but potentially there'd be your husband and wife coming in, and so they don't always like your kids. You know, I was a child that was very outspoken. You probably can tell that now, but I was very outspoken. I was going to speak my mind regardless, and so I got a lot of slapped in the mouth and all kind of stuff. Now my stepfathers only disciplined me once, but that and because I was the way I was, there was some neglection there. Well, I was neglected in some assets because hey, you're not my father. You're not my father. You can't tell me what to do. You're not my father. My mother had to correct that a few times. All right. So I think when you think about some of the things with discipline and the things you have to deal with, you just got to take all these things in consideration. That's all I'm saying is when you decide to bring certain men, certain women are horrible people. I mean, as far as they're not good character people. They don't have integrity. And you bring in these men and these women in their life, and sometimes these stepfathers and stepmothers molesting the kids, beating them and whooping them too hard. So you gotta, it's just things you gotta think about. And so that's why, I said I'll never, my child, I definitely will be a protector of my child. Like, I wasn't abused or anything like that, sexually abused or nothing like that. But I'm just saying they are situations that have happened. So definitely talk about it. Definitely talk about it. I want to get to this because this is very important. And we're almost there as far as, I think, getting an understanding covering some of the full spectrum of things. But we want to talk about the finances. We want to talk about the finances. So I want to ask you guys a question. Anybody can jump in here. But are you okay with your partner's income being somewhat limited as far as, I know when it comes to women having kids, multiple kids, money's going to be an issue, or there's going to be some financial things that have to discuss. So are you okay with maybe the man, let's say, for example, and then you guys can go in there like, I am paying for you. I'm taking everybody out, right? I'm taking everybody out to dinner and I might be limited in income. And so I can't afford to pay for all the kids. So are you going to be, you got to discuss it. Are you going to take the bill and say, oh no, I'll pay for my kids and you just make sure that I'm good? Now, I'm not saying that I'm that type. I'm just saying that these are conversations and things that have happened. I want to get into that. Go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and jump in there. Everybody on the panel, go ahead and tell me what you think about that.
First of all, that ain't gonna happen. You go pay. I'm just being realistic. You go pay, buddy. You go pay one way or the other. You go pay. You know what I mean? Here's the thing: if you ask somebody to take them and their family out, you should be prepared to take care of that. That's just being a part of the man, being the protector and the provider, that type of thing. But at the same time, if you can't do it, then you should probably, do something that's conducive, like saving that money and buying groceries and having something at the house. Have a backyard dinner or something where you have picnic tables set up and light candles and play music and have a different type of experience and leverage that money in a different way where you get more out of it versus going to a restaurant or something like that, being creative. You know what I mean? Because if you put a woman on the spot and she already has her bill money earmarked for something else, she's probably not going to be apt to hey, I'm gonna pick up the kids because that's money she had set aside for something else. You know what I mean? Because people always say, yeah, I want to do this, I'm gonna do that, but at the end of the day, people still have budgets. You know what I mean? They got to operate inside that budget. So you don't want to kind of spring that on somebody with kids, because I'm pretty sure they already had that money planned out in their head some kind of way. Just speaking from experience.
Yeah, great point. I'm a budget person. I'm a planner and I'm a budget person. So it comes down to communication. If you communicate that with me beforehand, then we can definitely plan. And you also have to look at the other person's qualities, not always about finances. They may be shortcoming with finances, but they have a whole lot of other qualities that is going to balance out the relationship. But it all goes back to communication. Did you wait until you get to the restaurant to tell her that? Or did you communicate that beforehand? And, she agreed that, listen, I'm going to send you half, or, you can play it off. She can cash app you. She can Zelle you some money, and then you just play it off just so the kids see you in that manly role and not just mom swiping the card at all times. So it definitely goes back to communication in the relationship.
Just allowing some others who want to jump in there, if you wanted to jump in there about it.
I can't speak on that. I can speak on the flip end of it, like as far as if there's, I'm just saying personally, if there's like a man that I'm dating and he has kids, I can speak on that. And I think y'all may have, I think I was listening a little bit before I got a chance to get on here, and you may have already touched surface on this as far as being able to financially afford dating, because that's I mean, for me personally, I don't want to. I won't say, never, because I have personally. My ex-husband had 2 kids. And so, but I prefer not, I prefer, this is a preference, not to date someone with kids. I'll still date someone with kids. Let me put that out there. But they need to be like over 10 or over 11 or over 12. And the stipulation is he still needs to be able to afford to do things. I'm not putting myself out here sacrificing. I'm just being real. I mean, people don't be wanting to be real all the time. Yeah. They be, putting all this sugar coating because we live and whatever. But Elena going to be real. I'm not doing it. I have several nieces and nephews that I could potentially help finance things for. Actually, I have a niece that has 1 more year of high school. She's graduating 2023. So when I think about overall financing for a child, I'm just being real. I think about my nieces and nephews. That's what I think about, because my sisters, they don't, they're single. And so it's like, I think about helping them. That's my thought. Now, obviously, if I'm in a relationship with a man with kids, because my ex-husband had kids, I have no problem helping. You should be helping if you're, because, as the little saying goes, package deal. But he needs to make sure he's financially capable of taking care of a household and still going places with me. If not, it's not going to work. We just have to be real, I'm just saying. And, and so, and that's it. So I have no problem with helping sometimes, and because I think that goes back to what we were discussing. I have no problem with helping, but initially it kind of depends on where the relationship is going. If this is serious, but it's a whole lot of other things that has to go into place for it to even be serious, because quality time is the love language and traveling is the love language. Those are high on my priority list. If he cannot do some of that, then it's not going to work. I'm just being real. I know. Anyway, I don't need nobody trying to mail me no bless all. I'm just being real tonight.
Hey, that's what we want. I mean, I want us to be real and as brutally honest as possible, because this conversation has been going on a long time, and different posts that I've seen, and women and that I've talked to was very disappointed, and men who decide not to date women with children. So this is great. This is good. And I want you to be real. Before I go on to my spill, did you have something to add, AB?
I'm just going to add traveling to this as the 6th love language. I'm going to add that one. I learned something new tonight.
Okay, great. Yes, it's a love language. It's mine.
But really, I agree with everything with what most of y'all said. I really agree with Fran. It's all about communication. If you're a guy and you can't afford to pay for everyone, listen, you got to be transparent. You can't let your pride get in the way. You can't pretend to be someone that you're not. Be your authentic self. Let her communicate to her that I can't afford to pay for all the kids, so there's no surprises at the dinner table. And I think she'll respect you more that way.
Absolutely.
Can I add to that real quick? Good. I was just gonna add, based on what AB said, that I basically, I've had some men that don't have kids, or that have kids, that say, "Hey, I can't do this right now, but let's discuss it to do it down the road. Another date 2 or 3 weeks from now, a month from now." And I really appreciate that than to make up something or know they can't afford to do something and just try to, fake it. And I mean, so I appreciate a man that puts his pride down and is authentic with me and honest with me, because I like simple stuff sometimes too. I love walking at the park. I love waterfalls, and that's free. Most of the time you can find, you can do a Google search and find waterfalls in your city, or, so there's free things you can do too. And so I actually, and I say that sometimes to me, and I say, I appreciate that you were honest with me and say, hey, we can't, because I've had some men that have two jobs. And so they can afford to do things sometimes, but then there are times when they can't. And I can't do things all the time myself either. And so I appreciate when a man says to me, hey, I can't do it right now. Let's discuss, and initiate us doing things. Because I don't want to always be the one initiating. So let's go somewhere. But it's free and simple things to do sometimes. Not everything doesn't cost a lot. You can just have a picnic at the park. Go to the grocery store, get some snacks, walk around the park, get a blanket, chill. So there's all kinds of simple, low cost things that you can be creative and do as well. And I honestly appreciate when a man says that, hey, I can't do something. Because the thing about it is some of those, like the small things, to me, that's when I can actually learn more about a person. Like just going to the park, talking, not always running around doing stuff, because talking, communication is very important. And we can't have communication if all we're doing is planning events all the time. We need to be still sometimes. Be still, talk, just between me and him, not running around trying to make plans and RSVP for all these events. We need to be still sometimes. And I find myself just single myself, realizing that, hey, I'm doing too much. I need to be still. And that's important sometimes. Just be still, listen to each other, talk to each other. Don't be planning stuff all the time, because you're never going to have time to just learn each other. So those are my opinions on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good points. Like everybody that I'm listening to, I think everybody's making some wonderful, valid points. I want to ask the ladies this question, and Fran, and then I'll go into what I wanted to say. But are you willing to contribute to the financial obligations that may come about when it comes to a man? Because, we have women that have different perspectives, that no matter what, they want men that's going to pay for everything, the bills, mortgage, electric bill, all the stuff that comes with the household and things of that nature, food, it's all on him. And so are you ladies willing to contribute financially and assist the man, or do you have a mentality? And that you can discuss, you don't have to be specific, because I know this is in general, that's your business, whoever you decide to get involved with. But I think men have to be sure that they can make enough money or can afford to take care of a woman with her kids. I think that's something that a man would have to evaluate and to consider with any woman, not just a woman with kids, but with any woman. But when she has kids and they are not chores, you have to provide financially for them as well. And so you have to be prepared to do that. So some women will not help. That's why I'm asking the question. Some women will not help with the cost of anything. And so that's just, so we, I don't, women have different mentalities. And so you have to communicate those things, talk about those things. And so go ahead and answer, because if you as a woman decide that, hey, you know what, I'm not going to contribute to anything, it's the man who's going to pay it all, then you have to be satisfied with the lifestyle that man's income can afford. And so you may not be able to get everything. Your kids may not have the PlayStation 4s and stuff if you're not going to help contribute. But go ahead and let me go ahead and answer that, ladies, please. And men, you can provide your perspective as well.
For me, I think it's definitely teamwork. Goes back to that communication again. We live in a society where a lot of women has taken on that higher level with the financial. We have more women are dominating the homes and bringing in more money, more income, as opposed to the men. And then that presents another challenge also, because we have a lot of men who are not able to handle that. For me, it's definitely teamwork. I'm always in a situation where I'm the one on the higher scale with the finances. But even though someone may not be making as much as I am, they definitely have to contribute. They still have to bring something to the table. So it's having that conversation. What are you going to bring? What is it we're going to do together? Who's responsible for what? And just laying it out in the relationship.
So for me, teamwork, I'm fine with it. Yes, I will help participate in the finances. I don't expect the man that I'm in a serious relationship with, marriage, not just we kicking it, hanging out, booze, bays, but serious, I'm being real, serious relationship, marriage, I'm willing to help participate. And always communication. What works for one couple may not work for the other. And I say that because when I've been married, and previously when I was married, one of my previous friends, she would ask me what I pay and what he paid, which we had a brief discussion of it, but I thought about it. It was like, it really didn't matter because what I do in my household with him shouldn't be, shouldn't automatically be the same for another man and woman household, if you see what I'm saying, kind of. Because they need to communicate. What I do in the household where I'm living at shouldn't directly, it's okay to get opinions, but it shouldn't directly impact what another couple do in their house. How they split up stuff. That's what she wanted to know. How we splitting up, whatever. And it's like that, I think it's okay to get opinions, but I'm okay with the teamwork thing as far as communicating and figuring out what to do and what to pay together or who pays this, who pays that. I'm okay with it because ultimately, if he's trying to do everything, then he's not gonna have no time for me. Let's go back to the quality time. That's one thing. Another thing is, why would I want him to do everything and I work? I have a job. Now I can see if one or the other, the man or the woman, doesn't work at the time, things happen. Then the other person should, regardless of the gender, should be able to cover more of everything, while the other person is looking for another job or whatever the situation may be. Now, if I was at home potentially having kids and not working, that's a whole different story. At the time, I shouldn't be expected to help as much or, financial help. But I don't plan on that having kids. And so financial, I want to work. I want to keep my job. I know some women want to stop working when they get married. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm just talking about for me. I want to continue to work. So it makes, for me personally, it makes better sense to just have teamwork. Why am I making him pay everything and I'm just, Now I can see, I think there was a conversation one day I saw posted about the woman saving more money for traveling and stuff like that, but they both can save for traveling. She can still, for me, I'm not talking about, for me, I still want to help pay things financially in the household. And then me and that man save for things together. I don't think there should be him taking the brunt of everything because that causes, I honestly think, financial issues is one of the big things that happens in relationships that cause discord as well. Because one person eventually could think they're being used or whatever. And so I want to be fair and I want to be able to help because if I'm working, I have no problem helping. So point blank, that's all.
Appreciate those points. Definitely appreciate your perspective on that. Did any of the brothers, did you want to jump in here and add anything? Okay. All right. And so I've heard one thing, and then we're going to move on. But ladies, as I used to talk to men on the job, there was one thing that they did say is they said that they don't mind taking women out. This is for married men and men who are just dating women with kids, but they were saying that they didn't like the fact that sometimes the women would make plans to spend their money without them knowing those plans. So I think, it's important because, you were saying that it's important for a man to be able to afford and financially do certain things. So if you're already saying, this weekend we going to Universal Studios, right? And you haven't told him about it, but you're already spending this money for him. You're not going to pay anything, but you're expecting him to, Universal Studio you and your kids. So that kind of thing. So a lot of men were aggravated about that. Now, I've been in that situation, but I'm just saying that was one thing that kept saying that sometimes women have the tendency to make plans with spending their money, because usually sometimes there's like situations where a woman may expect you to, I guess, go somewhere, do something, pay out some money. But if it was their money, they wouldn't do it themselves. But because it's your money, they're going to take advantage of that. So I just was saying, I think the communication is very important to be able to, kind of, let them know what your plans are. So it's just not tossed out there and you're not seemingly spending their money before they have agreed upon it. But I think that was good. I think that we've covered a lot of different things. I want to get to this last question as we're getting ready to end the discussion. I know it's been kind of long, and but I think it's great. It's needed, and so it can go on a little bit longer than the allotted time. But for this last question for everybody is, I'll ask, as a parent, what responsibilities will you expect out of the individual you are dating? And what expectations do you have as an individual with no kids while dating a single parent if you choose to date someone that does have kids? So I want to get everybody's perspective, and then you guys can let everybody know how they can get a hold of you. But I want to dive into that a little bit. What are your expectations? Because I think that's what is needed to be discussed as a single parent. What are you expecting of that man, that woman, and even single people with no kids? What are our expectations? What, go ahead and drop it. Whoever wants to go ahead and discuss that part.
I'll go. So, as a single with no kids, my expectation for a man with kids is that first he's honest. Let me go. I was gonna say something else. First, he's honest about how many kids he has. I'm just saying. Let's be honest. And then,
men haven't been telling you about how many kids they have.
Because being a woman with no kids, sometimes people just tell me stuff and they just think I'm supposed to believe everything off the cuff or just anything they say right then. So first, let's be honest. Second, I'm expecting him to spend time with his kids. Very important to me. Even though I'm a woman with no kids and I don't plan on having any, I have a lot of nieces and nephews. As an educator, I'm around kids a lot, and I've been in the education field for 15 years. And so I just basically know how it is to not have a mother or father around. So because my biological father was never around, never. And so that's very important to me, that the man, especially if it's going to be serious, that I see him trying to spend time with his kids and take the initiative. And I ask questions sometimes, because I've had experience where some don't have any relationship with their kids, even their grown kids. And so it's like, which is important to me too, even if we're not having kids together, but he has kids and he has grown adult kids. I asked him about the relationship and he says, oh, they don't really want to have anything to do with him. Those are, that's something you need to look into. Why do your kids not want to have anything to do with you? Now obviously there could be some some kind of issues between him and the mom of the kids, obviously. But if these are adults, they not kids. I mean, they grown adult kids, and they still don't want anything to do with you, that has nothing to do with them. I'm just saying. I personally don't feel that should have anything to do with the mom or the kids, because the kids are grown now. The kids are grown. They're adults now. So why have you not fixed the relationship with your kids? That's important to me. If you can't fix the relationship with your kids where y'all are talking, then it gets me to wonder what other, issues you're going to have in the future. So that's just my personal experience with it. So I expect a man with kids to have a relationship with his kids. If they under 18, they over 18, whatever, he should have a relationship with the kids instead of saying, not saying it had to be made up, but I've experienced where he says this and that about the mom or the kids. And that's an important thing too. That's number 3. The third thing is talking about the mom or the kids or the ex-wife, like constantly talking about her in a demeaning way. I expect him to still show respect for women. That's for me personally, that's a turnoff. If a man, everything that has kids, because that's the topic, everything that comes out of his mouth about the baby mama or the mom or the kids, the ex-wife, is bad and negative, there has to be something. Let's be real. There has to be something that he was interested in for them to eventually be together and have sex together and have kids. So all of a sudden, since they're not together, maybe he's not healed properly, but he wants to get in a relationship with me, but he have not did the proper healing. So, because he's bitter. I'm just throwing out example, not saying for sure. But if he constantly talks about the mom in a demeaning way, that's a turnoff for me. So I expect the man with kids to be healed or be working on being healed from some of this bad baggage or bad, this whatever issues, put it that way, whatever issues he had with the mom. I don't want him always talking to me about her in a demeaning way. Like every time they, I've experienced that. I personally have experienced that I was dating a man that every time he talked about the mom, it was like, wait a minute. It was some kind of light bulb that started going on in my head that like, does he have to say everything demeaning or mean about her? Like there's nothing positive. And that just made me start feeling that he doesn't, there's something misogynistic or something with him. And eventually it did rear his head because of the way he started trying to treat me. I'm just saying from my personal experience. So there's some stuff that people need to move past and move on. Because sometimes people, even without kids, with or without kids, there's men and women, not just trying to put on men, but my personal experience is obviously with men, with kids, or without kids. And so sometimes people are not getting appropriate healing and they're just moving on to other relationships and dating. So I expect the man to try to work on being healed. So honesty, number 1, is very important. 2, spend time with his kids. 3, healing. Work on healing and still have a relationship with the mom where I don't have to feel like, I'm going to cause, I want to get along with the woman if he do have kids. And how can I try to get along with her if everything he say is bad about her? Because then he already made my viewpoint, like that she's not, and who knows? He could be making up things. Who knows what she's saying about him? So, those are my 3 big things. Honesty, making sure that he spends time with his kids and the relationship or how he's talking about his mom, the mom of the kids, excuse me, not his mom, the mom of the kids, and trying to heal and not be bitter over his past. And so those are important for me. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, let me jump in there real quick and then everybody can go. But some of these women are trife out here. And so it probably was just a sexual thing in some aspects. It probably was just sexual, physical attraction. It happens all the time. Oh, she looks good. She's got a banging body. She's fine. And then child came out of it. It was just a sexual thing. And so some men and women, I'm not saying men, just women, but they're trife in their character. And they were just punching bags. if you understand what I'm saying. It's just a sexual thing to you just having consistent sex because you're attracted to each other. It's not a good thing. And so that's why you got to make better decisions when it comes to anybody, you lay down with. But that's all I want to say. But go ahead, whoever wants to go next.
For me, as a single woman, dating either a man with or without kids, what I would need is the support, their understanding, their flexibility, and definitely being transparent. You have to be understanding to know that sometimes I can be spontaneous, sometimes I cannot be spontaneous. Sometimes I can do the things that you want, sometimes I'm not able to do the things that you want. But at the same time, be transparent, because you have a right to be upset. You have to have a right to be upset at me, but let's talk about it. Instead of just, some people, they're upset and then they hold grudges and then they're doing other spiteful things and the other person don't even know why they're upset. So, be transparent. You have to know what you're getting into. And it goes back to that dialogue in the beginning. So once you know what you're getting into, and we spoke about this, that I have kids, that this is my situation, I have a busy schedule. So, if we cannot do the things that you like and you're upset for whatever reason or the other, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Maybe, I was so caught up, I wasn't even thinking about it. I wasn't aware. And, we can work things through. So definitely, support, understanding, the flexibility and transparency, that would do it for me.
Makes sense.
For me, I have no expectations. I put no responsibilities on someone that I'm dating when it comes to my child, but there are some things that I look out for when it comes to my child and dating someone. I look out to see if they even acknowledge my child. If you ask about my child, you don't have to have a relationship. You don't even have to have met them yet, but just a simple acknowledgement, some show of interest that I have a child is important to me. I look to see if the person is family oriented. If you don't have any children, how do you talk about your nieces or your nephews or your little cousins or just the children that's in your life? Because if you're going to be with me, being that I have a child, I want to see how your relationships with the other children that you are surrounded by. I definitely look at how the person reacts or speaks when I talk about my co-parenting, because I think a lot of people automatically have this idea that co-parenting relationships are supposed to be negative and toxic, and mine isn't. So I definitely look out to see what the person's reaction is as I talk about my co-parenting agreements or relationship with my son's mom. See if it's negative, if it's positive, if they ask about it, and kind of like what Fran said, I look out for their understanding. They have to understand that I have a major responsibility on my hand. So as a father, so I would need them to understand what that all entails, and in the requirements of my time and my energy and even resources at times, or most of the time, I can say.
Yes, sir. Beautiful.
I'm gonna tell you straight up, I come first. I'm just gonna be real. I come first. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I'm the person who's responsible for everything that goes on in that house. You know what I mean? If she doesn't say, "Hey, have you eaten yet? Have you had enough rest or whatever?" Because I'm gonna be, and ultimately, I'm responsible for everything that goes in the house. My daddy told me a long time ago. He said, "You better take care of everything in the house that got your name on it, and everybody who's you responsible for." So if I'm not taken care of, and I'm not getting the things that I need to give everybody else what they need in the house, then it's gonna be my way or the highway. I hate to be that way, because I'm not coming second fiddle to nobody. You know what I'm saying? I'm not coming second fiddle to no kids. I'm not coming second fiddle to your parents. None of that. If I'm responsible for the household, I'm responsible for everything. I come first. Period. You know what I mean? Because I have to answer to God. If I'm getting my instructions from God, he said, "Hey, Jared, this is what I need you to do. Make sure you check on your kids. Make sure you check on the wife. She really hadn't had any much time, this thing or the other. Make sure you take care of her." You know, if she needs some time away from the kids, do that. I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to listen to God and say, hey, look, this is what we need to do. If the kids need special attention because they feel like they're lonely, that's my job as the head lover in chief, is to make sure that everybody in that household feels loved. But if it gets to a point where I'm second fiddle and nobody takes into consideration my needs or whatever, and I'm always last, I'm not going to feel motivated to do my very best for the entire family. So you have to be able to show honor in different places. Even in Proverbs 31, the Proverbs 31 husband, he's in there. He said he's known in the gates. He ain't known in the gates for no reason. He's known in the gates because he's somebody. You see what I'm saying? And he's able to do the things that he needs to do so his wife can do the things that she needs to do. And then he says that he speaks glowingly of his wife. You see what I'm saying? So he always has something that edifies his wife. And to me, that builds a household. That builds trust. That builds a foundation. You see what I'm saying? You're teaching your kids to have honor. So I'm not going to have a household where you don't honor people who take care of you. That's a wrap. Because I'm going to honor my parents, because the Bible says if you honor your parents, your days may be long. Well, guess what? If my mama tells me to do something, guess what? I'm going to do it because I'm going to honor my mama. If my dad tells me to do something, guess what? I'm going to do it because I'm supposed to honor him. And if we do things in its proper order that way, then we're going to have honor. We're going to have order. But as far as me coming second to anything, or a pet or a dog or anything else, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Either it's going to happen my way or we're not going to do it at all. We could be best friends. You know, you can call me up if you have any problems. But if I'm going to be responsible for running the house, I come first. I hate to put it to you like that, but I'm just being honest. Because I have to make concessions. If I have to make concessions, then it has to be my way.
Absolutely, great points from everybody, and that's what is needed to take place. These real conversations, being brutally honest, and so there's some other things to consider too. Is that also man is going to have to be really secure in himself when getting with someone who has kids? Is because the baby daddy or that's in the life will be around often, and you're going to have to communicate with that man and with that person and be cordial if you can, and you'll see that man. This is what goes through the minds of some brothers, that you're going to see this man all the time, and he has been having sex on a consistent basis with your woman, and the kid is the evidence of the seed thing, and so you're going to have to deal with that. Can you handle that? Can you handle, being cordial and being having some integrity when being around the baby mother, the baby daddy, that kind of thing, for both men and women? So these are things you just got to think about and consider when you decide to get into a relationship with a man or woman who has kids. Also, men don't like, and the brothers, like I said, I come from spiritual and natural perspectives, where a lot of brothers don't like thinking of a man pleasing their woman sexually or better than them, and you haven't seen that consistently. It's kind of like you have to see that, man. A lot of people can't deal with that mentally. I'm just saying, people can't deal with knowing that man has been around. He's been, sexing or having sex with your girl in all kind of ways, and he's the one, and his son is right there, his daughter's right there. You got to deal with that. Can you handle that? I'm just saying, like, these are conversations that brothers have at the barbershop. I'm just giving.
Hey, that's a part of that package deal, Tamel. That's the
part
of the package deal that nobody want to talk about. That's a part of the package deal too.
And some brothers aren't mentally capable to handle that. Like, man, I'm after all see this guy, and there's a connection. The kid is there, and they didn't have sex, and all that stuff. It's a mental thing, or just men are just like that kind of territorial. Like Jared was saying that he wants to be the king of his own castle, and sometimes it's hard to be a king of your own castle if your woman is not going to allow you to be that. If you understand what I'm saying. So sometimes
that goes both ways too. As far as the woman, is a woman able to deal with a man that has a child, that has a good relationship with the child's mom? Right. Do you think every time you go pick up the son or the daughter that something's going on? So it definitely happens.
Yeah,
I've seen that a few times.
That's why I wanted to see. This is the things, because people aren't thinking about. They're not being real and honest. And see, the Bible says, "How can two walk together unless they agree?" Right? And so you got to be on one accord. And so I know some of the ladies are upset. Some brothers may be upset that women are avoiding them with kids, but these are things you got to take in consideration. Sometimes the kids won't respect you, and then no matter what you do for them, they may not appreciate it, and then in some cases they will love their biological parents better than you, and they're not even in their life doing anything for them, but because it's their biological parent, they're gonna love them because that's their father or their mother. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to be okay with that. A lot of things to consider concerning that, and so don't be mad. And you got to trust and believe God for what God has for you, men and women who have kids, and men and women who don't have kids. But I'm just saying that if a man or a woman decides that, hey, look, I'm not going to be able to handle your situation because of the kids, you got to be okay with that. Right? And you just have to be okay with that, because that's just the situation that you're in, and it's not appealing to everybody. And I know I'm hurting feelings. I hope not to. I'm just being intentional having a conversation, because these are conversations that, men have among me and tell me things in private, because I am an elder, and they will tell me things in confidence that they don't tell their wives and people that they're dating, because they trust me as a source. And I won't put anybody's business out there, but I'm just letting you know that these are things secretly that men are thinking about. And I just want to leave you guys with this, and then you guys can tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. But I wanted to hit this last scripture and go on a positive note. And let's go, Ephesians 5, I think, and I love this, because even though we are dating, right, we're in a courting process. So we're dating, but we eventually want to be married, right? And so Ephesians 5 and 22 through 33 says, which says, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is head of the wife, as also Christ is head of the church, and he is the savior of the body. Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that he should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives with their own bodies, and he who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church, who are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall be one flesh. And it says at the end that this is a great mystery concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let each of you, as it says in scripture, let each of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So Bible's requiring that husbands love the wives, and their wives respect their husbands as they reverence the Lord. And so I just think those are good things to think about. You want to get into a relationship and have that mentality, even in the dating and courting process, to get to this point and to understand those requirements or instructions from God for a man and a woman as husband and wife. And so I think that's a good scripture to leave with you guys. But all right, any final thoughts from you guys and everybody? We'll start from the bottom to the top, and you guys can let everybody know how they can get a hold of you. And if you want to say something else, you can.
So my final thought is something I think that's also should be considered. And this goes back to if there's communication on a continuous basis in the relationship. If this is a marriage, before it even gets to marriage, there should be discussions on if there's kids, if the woman already has kids or the man already has kids. The discussion should be on what if something happens to the other parent, like honestly, like health, medical, or even death. I say that because I personally know a few people that, like one of my best friends from when I was in high school and up until 2012, we were friends, and then she died in 2012. And so then when that happened, because she was not with the husband anymore, they were And so he had the kids, and then he was with he already was dating someone else at the time. So these are things, so this happens sometimes. These are things that need to be considered, that it may just be at the moment, every other weekend thing where you see the kids of your, spouse, because of the other parent. But then it could turn into a everyday, full time, you had kids at the house with you. If there's some health, medical, or death of the other parent, then that's most likely what will happen. So that needs to be a consideration. Like, there needs to be a lot of serious discussions, like, when you're dating someone with kids. And actually, I would say even with our kids, honestly, because sometimes the as an adult, you may end up starting to take care of your mom or your dad, and then you're trying to figure out if taking care of means they come live with you, or is taking care of mean you put them in a senior facility, or so there are a lot of things that need to be discussed, but some of this don't get discussed until it's like happens, like bam, it just happened. Something medical happened with the mom or the dad. Now it's discussed, and then sometimes it's not even discussed then, because sometimes people like to keep those type of things privately, where they don't even tell the mom or the kids or the dad or the kids that that they have health issues or health situations or whatever they are. Sometimes you don't find out until it's like they're already hospitalized and die. I'm just gonna be real. And then sometimes it's not even health. Sometimes it could just be a car accident. So, all these different things need to be discussed. So that would be my final thoughts or considerations on things like that, as far as having kids or no kids, and just having a relationship with someone with kids. So that's my final thought. I'm in single phase, no kids, and so my name is posted here, Elena Walker. And so I actually also have my own Facebook page. I have Instagram as well, and that's it. So yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I guess my final thought will be something that I've actually been ruminating on for the entire week, something that I read, and it just has to do with relationships. It could be a relationship between man and woman, woman and child, man and child, whatever. But the statement said, in relationships, you could either be a spotlight or you can be a flashlight. If you're a spotlight, you're looking to be the center of attention. You want all eyes on you. When you walk into a room, you're not looking to see who's in the room, but you're looking to see who's looking at you. Or you can be a flashlight, where you're shining a light on others, and you're looking to see the needs of others, and you're looking to see people in who's actually in the room. If you decide to be a flashlight in your relationships can't go wrong. If you decide to be the spotlight, or you want the spotlight, there's a good chance that your relationship will die. Um, you can apply that to any relationship that you might be involved in. My name is AB Bracewell. My IG is below, Ready for Relationships. I am also an author of 2 books. I have a third one coming up. I also have a private practice that I recently opened, a licensed therapist here in the state of Pennsylvania. So if you know anyone that's looking for counseling, family or relationship therapy, I'm open. Thank you.
Beautiful.
My final thought is just to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself and your choices and what you want. Because if you don't want to date someone with kids, just don't date them. Some people, they may say, okay, let me try. They know they don't want to date someone with kids, but because the person looks attractive, they're going to say, let me try. Don't do it. If you don't want to date someone with kids, don't do it. Just be honest with yourself, honest with your decisions, and honest with your choices. At the end of the day, you have to please God and you have to please yourself. And I can be found on Facebook. My private Facebook page is Fran Sampson. I have a Facebook group taking care of our mental health. And you can also visit my website, which is fransam.org.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
The last thing I want to add to is to make sure that you add some type of depth to your relationship. And what I've seen throughout the days is that people have these surface level, at arm's length type of relationships where it boils down to, hey, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? Those type of things. Nobody really actually cares for somebody because that's the person that they care for. Make sure that you find common ground with people, man, instead of just, saying, hey, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Because what it does, it makes life worth living later on down the road. Because as you get older, you get to see life from different angles. You know what I mean? And everything that you value today may not be what you value tomorrow. Because I don't know anybody who was on their deathbed who said, I wish I had to work some more overtime. You know what I mean? Everybody that I know of said, hey, I wish I had to spend more time with my family. So family needs to get back to being the focus of the reason why we do relationships, and make sure that your family has a purpose. You know what I mean? Make sure that they do the things that they said they're going to do and have a plan for your family. You know what I mean? When I was coming up, my grandparents on both sides, their purpose was to make sure they reach out to help people. And it may not be conventional, yes, they were in the church or whatever, but there's been plenty of times I've had, over my grandparents, people just come over and they just sit down and talk with people. And I think that's one of the things we need to get back to, because people are starving for recognition and attention. And everybody wants to know that they're not in the world alone. So those are the things that you want to make sure that you take time out to develop your family in such a way that they reach out to other people to make sure that they know that they're loved too, because, they may not have a situation where they feel loved in their particular family or their job or whatever, but always make sure you design your family that is there to help each other and to use that excess love to spill over to help other people as well. So you can reach me on my YouTube channel, Lost in Translation. I'm also on Facebook under my name, and I'm all over the place on YouTube. So if you want to find me, you can just find me on Facebook under my name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful thoughts from everyone. And I'll leave everybody with my 3 S's of compatibility. I think it's important that everyone should be spiritually compatible, socially compatible, and sexually compatible. That's regardless of if you have kids or not. The 3 S's of compatibility: spiritually compatible with one another, socially compatible, and sexually compatible. I'm not saying I have to act. I'm just saying make sure you have the conversation and talk about it, even if you're not doing it. But it's been wonderful, you guys. I think it's been great. Appreciate everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Elena. Thank you so much, AB, Fran, JB, Gerard. I appreciate you guys. It's been a wonderful, fruitful conversation. I hope that the points and the perspectives and the thoughts coming from these individuals have caused you to think about something that you might want to change. There's something that you might want to think about when you get into these relationships. There's things that you have to discuss thoroughly. We got to get past the surface stuff. What's your favorite restaurant? What's your favorite color? And get into the nitty-gritty of what's in your heart, what's in your mind. How do you feel about certain topics? What's important to you? What's going on in your life? And so you got to understand that everyone is not going to share your same perspective, and we all come from different backgrounds, teachings, and we're all brought up in different ways. And so we have to learn to be more understanding of others' perspectives, even if they are different from ours. And so just discuss everything thoroughly. Don't leave any questions unanswered before getting into the relationships. Well, I love you with the love of the Lord Jesus. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time. SS and K, thank you for your support. Thank you, family and friends, for tuning in. Everybody on YouTube, we love you with the love of the Lord Jesus. Anything else, you guys? Are you guys good? We ready to go?
I'm good.
All right. Blessings, peace and blessings. God bless. We'll catch you on the next one.
Take care, y'all.
Good night.
All right.
All right.